So a lot of people reach out a lot and they're interested in a low startup cost, low skilled business for somebody without much experience, somebody without a lot of money and a lot of capital. And I found one. This episode of Sweaty Startup is brought to you by LaunchKits. Visit launchkits.com/sweaty. For under $500, you can get a website, a Google My Business location, a Google Voice, everything you need to operate your business to get found online. Visit launchkits.com/sweaty. So when I bought my house in 2018, this house was built in 2017. When I bought it in 2018, this deck that you're looking at right here was in really poor shape. The wood was moldy. Not a lot of sun comes from this side of the house, so it's the shady side, so the moisture can't dry, the moisture sticks in it, and then you're kind of stuck with it. So what I did last year is I put some stain on it. I didn't really clean it, didn't really do much. And that was kind of a Band-Aid. About 6 months later, it looked horrible once again, and I realized that you actually have to clean it. You got to get that dirt and grime and mildew and mold, and you got to get that off the deck. So what I did was I decided about a week ago to have somebody come out here and clean it and then stain it. So I went on Google, searched for deck cleaners, deck restoration, deck services, and one company on the Google Maps app popped up. So I called them up and they didn't answer. So I left them a message. I did some Googling, found one other company that had the word deck in their name, called them, no answer, left them both a message. 4 days later, one of them called me back, was not very professional, took down some information, asked to come out and see the deck. And I was like, no, I don't want you to come see it. I mean, I know how big the deck is. I'll send you a picture of what kind of condition it's in, and I know what I need to have done. So I did that, sent him a picture, and $750 was the quote I got to clean the deck and stain the deck. So I was like, wow, that's a lot of money, almost $1,000. So I decided that I was not going to pay that, and I was going to just do it myself. So I looked up online and watched about an hour's worth of YouTube videos and learned a lot about deck restoration. People are very good at it. You can make a very crappy deck look amazing with a couple simple tools. So I think it's an excellent startup idea. Doing this for people is an excellent startup idea that you could do for very little money. First thing I would do is find somebody's deck to clean and learn a little bit about it. What I learned is that, I'll show you the deck right here. What I learned is that half bleach and half soap and a mixture in a spray bottle. I got $3.80 worth of soap worth of bleach, and then I put about 8 ounces of actual dish soap in as well into a spray bottle. The dish soap acts as a surfactant, is what it's called. It makes it stick, makes the bleach stick to the deck. So I sprayed this one bottle. All it took was one bottle on the entire deck, and I let it sit for about 20 minutes. And then I took a water hose, not a power washer, a water hose, and I sprayed off the bleach, and the deck was in unbelievable shape. Just that alone made it look like this. That's the stage that I'm at right now. And then I ordered $105 worth of deck stain. That's what I did last time. This time I actually read online that linseed oil is even better, so I got boiled linseed oil. I think it was $8.90 for a 1 gallon container of it. I got a couple gallons of it. I'm going to put that on. That's what all the big deck restoration companies do. So overall, we are going to be, I'd say 20, if you count the sprayer, that's about a $15 sprayer from Walmart. The bleach, the soap, and the linseed oil. And if you get a broom to apply it, we're looking at under $50 worth of equipment. One full day's work, I spent probably 2 hours cleaning the deck up, and I'll spend probably 6 hours actually staining it. So we're looking at 8 hours time, less than $100 investment, and you can make $750 in revenue. I'm not a genius at math, but that's well over $50 an hour, and an excellent business that is in a huge demand because everybody has a deck, and there's a lot of old decks that people don't have the money to replace because getting a deck replaced is incredibly expensive. So what I would do, I'm going to kind of run you down the list of things that I would do to start one of these businesses. The first thing I would do is I would go on Google Domains, domains.google.com, and I would find an available domain name with my town name and the word deck in it. So in here in Athens, it would be Classic City Deck or Athens Deck, something along those lines. You can even put cleaning, restoration, washing, whatever in there, staining. And then I would build a lot of pages on that, and I would actually buy the domain. I'd buy it on domains.google.com. I would install WordPress. I would get a free WordPress theme. I would go to Canva. There's a website called Canva, C-A-N-V-A, to get a logo done and a little bit of media, just some information. I'd take some before and after pictures of the first deck that I do for a friend or on my own. I'd take some before and after pictures, put them up there, make a couple videos just like this where you're looking at a camera, talking about decks, talking about what you do with them. And then I would go. I have the website. Then the next step would be to create a Google profile, a Gmail, a Google My Business location, a Google Voice phone number. And those are the three main tools, but you'll also get analytics, some other things to really kind of do some great things on Google. But it's the map that you're going to want to really focus on, the Google My Business location. I would send a postcard directly to my house or an office of a friend, and I would get that location on Google Maps. I'd get a couple early reviews from the neighbors, family members, friends who you stain decks for, and then you're ready. The next step, I would go to uprinting.com or Vistaprint or any of those online places, and I would get a bunch of flyers made, door hangers and flyers that say Athens deck cleaning or Athens deck restoration, phone number. This is what we do. We clean decks, we stain decks, and we restore decks to make them look unbelievable. And I'd put a couple pictures on there. And now let's talk about how we'd go about and get some customers. In this neighborhood, you're looking behind me, we got a couple new houses going in. I had to get up early to do this video because this is under construction basically. But this entire neighborhood, there's about 70 houses in it, and almost all of them were built in 2008. 2006, 2007, 2008 is when this development happened. So what that means is all of these homes are 12 years old now. And if wood decks were put on these homes, which about 50% of them have, they are nearing the end of their useful life if they have not been properly maintained. They are getting old. They are looking bad. They need some help. It's the perfect neighborhood to advertise deck restoration. So what I would do is I would go on Google Maps on my computer, and I would look around this neighborhood, and I would make a note of every single house that has a deck. Every single house. You can actually use Google Earth to go back in time and see when the houses were built. You can go every year back for about the last 15 years, and you can get live imagery of this. So you can see that this house 2 years ago wasn't here. You see that the neighbor house down was built in 2006, and it's got a deck on it. So I'd make a note of every single house that has a deck that's about 10 years old, and I would go around and I would actually knock on the door is what I would do. I mean, you can easily send a mailer or you can hang a door hanger, but if you knock on the door and introduce yourself and shake their hand and say like that you restore decks and give them your card, that's going to be much, much more effective than just door hanging. But that's one way. I would go on Google Maps, I'd look at houses that have decks, and I would look at new developments. I would look at a lot of new decks, because a thing about decks is when you build a deck, you cannot just stain it right after that. You got to wait 3 weeks. You got to wait a month for the deck to kind of dry out, to season, before it's ready for the stain to go down. And another really important thing to note here is that carpenters, people who build decks, they don't also like to stain them. They don't like to get back with a paintbrush and come back around and clean them. So what I would do is I'd try to find new builds, and I'd try to find out who bought the house, because a lot of times the stain and the cleaning doesn't come with it. And I would also, so I'd market to those new builds, but I would also talk to the contractors who build decks, because they are waiting, and I'm sure they get asked every day, hey, you installed my deck, but now it needs cleaned and restored, or it needs that first coat of stain. Who do you recommend? I would reach out to those people so that I'm their first name. Oh, you should call Athens Deck. You should call Nick. He'll take care of you. I've recommended him in the past. That's all it takes sometimes, is put your name in the back of the mind of somebody who can refer you business. Another thing is realtors. I would go to realtors and I'd say, look, I know you're trying to sell a lot of houses, and I know that people look at some crappy looking decks, and I can restore them. So if you go to a homeowner who's about to sell their house and convince them to spend $700 with me, their old decrepit deck will look really nice and it'll have a good coat of stain on it, and the people buying the house will notice that it'll make their home value go up. That's one option. And another thing is that realtors get asked all the time for recommendations on home service companies. We were new to Athens. We didn't know anybody here. We moved in. One of the only people we knew was our realtor. So we asked her, hey, who do you recommend for carpet cleaning? Who do you recommend for lawn care? Who do you recommend for pest control? Who do you recommend for this, for that, for this? Deck staining and deck restoration is another one. So you want to be in the top of the mind of the realtors who are selling a lot of houses in your cities so that they can recommend you. So what I would do is I would actually go around to these realtors and offer a free deck restoration for them. It sounds silly, right? But if somebody sells 300 houses a year as one of the top producing realtors in a town, if you get in with them and they can trust your work and they like you, that's a big, big deal. Another thing is just the professionalism, right? If you ask for referrals, if you follow up with leads and you answer the phone, you're going to be so far ahead of these other companies. If you get a service like Jobber that you can install on your website where people can request quotes, and you can follow up with leads and you can send estimates a lot quicker, a lot faster, it'll make the operation that much easier. But I think if you got after it a little bit, if you got a Google My Business location with 4 or 5 reviews, if you put some photos on there, if you got a website with a couple pages and some photos, you put yourself in the aggregators like Yelp, like Home Advisor, don't necessarily pay for ads there. You can experiment with that. But if you got yourself out there online, made some YouTube videos, uploaded some photos, and then got some flyers and door hangers and went around to the houses with decks that you know are in your prime area and age of needing service or needing help with, and handed the card out and talked to those homeowners, talk to the realtors and talk to the deck builders, very, very soon you could be doing this every weekend. So a lot of times people recommend a power washer for these decks, and you can do that. You can turn it, you can make the angle wider so it's not as powerful, and you can power wash the decks. It works a lot better. I didn't have access to a power washer, so I just had to spray mine off. But you might need a power washer long term. Early on, I would set up all these appointments for one day on the weekend, especially if you have a job. I love starting a business while you have a job. But I would set up all these appointments for one day on the weekend, and I would rent a power washer. And I'd ask the homeowner nicely if I could use their water. They're not going to mind at first. And turn it on a really light setting, and it'll make your job 10 times quicker. Then you got to come back the next day after it's dry and stain the deck. So it is going to be 2 visits per customer. But it sounds exciting to me. If I didn't have any money, if I didn't have any experience, if I was working a job, or if I didn't have any money to invest, mind you, I would look at a business just like this, deck restoration. The margins can be a lot higher than you think, and you can earn some really good money on the side and turn it into something